Welcome back to New Rockstars, I'm Erik Voss, and Iron Man 3 kicked off a new phase of Marvel with the craziest application of Tony Stark's tech, and a conclusion so final that it was completely ignored by the 5 Iron Man movies that followed. But there's actually way more to appreciate in Iron Man 3. Hidden Easter eggs, subtle clues for future MCU films that I only realized after more obsessive re-examination in this Infinity Saga rewatch. So let's get started with the opening lines.
A famous man once said, "We create our own demons." Who said that? What does that even mean? Doesn't matter. I'm gonna start again.
The movie's post-credit scene reveals that Tony's audience is Bruce Banner. This whole movie is Tony and Bruce trying to process what happened in the Avengers. Bruce's response is to sleep. He'll get a long nap after Age of Ultron. Tony, meanwhile, rambles through this weird story of trauma and guilt. The famous man he's paraphrasing here is Oscar Wilde, who said, "We are each our own devil, and we make this world our hell." As the creator of his own hell, Tony now wonders, what responsibility should we bear for the destruction our creations wreak on the world? This movie actually poses 2 answers. Retirement, but we know that's bullshit. Really, the answer is mentorship. I actually think there's a secret meaning to this post-credits scene that we will discuss at the climax of a well-structured video essay. But we open on Burn 1999 with the return of Yinsen, because this is the tech conference he referenced in the first Iron Man.
We met once, at a technical conference in Bern.
Don't remember.
No, you wouldn't. If I had been that drunk, I wouldn't have been able to stand, much less give a lecture.
And there's lots of 90s nostalgia. Eiffel 65's blue, and Happy Hogan's look is modeled on John Travolta from Pulp Fiction. Tony's with Maya Hansen. In the comics, she co-creates the Extremis virus alongside Aldrich Killian, who also shows up here retconned in the MCU to be the founder of AIM, which in the comics is a separate offshoot of Hydra. Tony makes Maya take Killian's card because he doesn't like being handed things, as we saw in the Avengers.
I don't like being handed
That's
things.
fine, because I love to be handed things.
And in Iron Man 2.
Yikes. He doesn't like to be handed things.
Yeah, I have a peeve.
I got it.
Tony's name tag reads, "You know who I am." Previously, he wore a Black Sabbath shirt whose song I Am Iron Man was also a callback to his big reveal. Notice Tony's sunglasses in this film. He uses them to shield unwanted interactions and then dramatically takes them off to show aggression, as he does in Infinity War. But he also takes them off to share them with minds he respects. Maya here, and in Spider-Man Far From Home, Peter Parker. The future protege I believe this whole movie is secretly Tony's training wheels protocol for. Tony fails to nurture the nerd Killian, who, like Maya's plants, transforms into a bomb. And Killian is framed with fireworks here, foreshadowing the explosive fireworks finale. Tony now tests his new Mark 42 armor, controlled via microchips in his blood, the first step in the armor's evolution toward the bleeding edge armor from the comics, which pools out from its flesh. The Mark 85 nanotech never actually resides in his bloodstream though. It's Christmas time! Director Shane Black often sets his movies at Christmas time, and Tony's opening words back in the Avengers set this up.
How does it look?
Like Christmas, but with more me.
And when the face mask locks in, notice the impact causes a bit of blood to trickle from his lip. As Venko told him in Iron Man 2, "If you can make God bleed, people will cease to believe in him." And in this movie, Tony ceases to believe in himself. The Mandarin's TV broadcast opens with the logo of the 10 rings, which we saw in Raza's banner in the first movie. Mandarin in this movie is a false flag, an actor, Trevor Slattery, appropriating the Mandarin legend. The real Mandarin will be played by Tony Leung in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and the Marvel one-shot All Hail the King cleared up Slattery's fakery.
There's somebody who wants to meet you.
Do I know him?
No. But you took his name, and now he wants it back.
But that is why the imagery here is such a chaotic mismatch of cultural influences. They draw on the jihad messaging of Osama bin Laden, but he also cites the real-life history of the Sand Creek Massacre in 1864. And in the trailer, you can see he also has a neck tattoo showing Cap Shield emblazoned with an Anarchy A. So a little lesson for you. Anything that's a lot of something is probably nothing of anything. The president in the MCU is Matthew Ellis, a nod to Warren Ellis, who wrote the Extremis storyline in the Iron Man comics. And Rhodey is now Iron Patriot, who in the comics is the patriotic armor worn by Norman Osborn. And the briefing here hints that the redesign was done by AIM, Killian's company. Tony tells Rhodey about his sleepless tinkering.
I got bomb disposal. Catches explosions midair.
In case you missed it, Tony made tech to catch a missile in midair and dispose it so that he will never again have to fly a nuke through a terrifying hellmouth. Tony gets a panic attack because the little nerd's drawing is so shitty.
I loved you in A Christmas Story, by the way.
Tony's referencing Peter Billingsley, who grew up into a film producer and Favreau collaborator, and and plays ex-Stark engineer William Ginter Riva in the MCU, who has a big role in Spider-Man's future, returning in Far From Home. Happy nags Pepper.
The human element of human resources is our biggest point of vulnerability. We should start phasing it out immediately.
What?
An overreaction, but another example of the recurring human versus technology conflict that runs throughout these films. Killian's lackey is Savin, based on Eric Savin from the comics, the villain Coldblood, a cyborg assassin. Later, Tony will nickname him Westworld. Back home, Tony has hung a stocking for Jarvis, which is red, green, and yellow, maybe a nod to the comics color scheme of his future form, the Vision. Kevin Feige described this movie as a love triangle between Pepper, Tony, and Tony's obsession with his armor. And that is on full display here as Tony tricks Pepper with the empty Mark 42, which also sets up the reveal of Tony remotely saving the falling people with this armor later. Tony jokes,
I got a team of guys coming tomorrow, they're gonna blow out that wall.
Actually, the next day, Tony does dare a team of guys to blow out that wall. I love how in all three Iron Man movies, Tony's Malibu Mansion gets increasingly smashed up, until in this third movie, it's fully demolished, reflecting how Tony's vanity is being stripped away. Tony's new sculpture is made up of pieces of the wrecked Formula One cars from Monaco, another running joke that's easily missed here. In Iron Man 1, Tony demanded Pepper buy overpriced art, and then in Iron Man 2, he sold the collection as a tax write-off, and now in Iron Man 3, he refills his collection with the broken pieces of the chaos in his wake. Tony's nightmare triggers his suit, and Pepper's pajama shirt is the same I lost an electron, are you positive joke shirt that Peter Parker later wears while visiting Tony in Spider-Man Homecoming. You know, there's probably like an Oedipus Complex episode of Total Conspiracy here, but I don't have time for it. At the Hollywood Chinese Theater, Savin meets with extremist patient Taggart, named after Jack Taggart in the comics, who becomes Firepower. Nearby in this forecourt are actually the handprints of Robert Downey Jr. As he walks away, notice the music. This is the famous Dies Irae funeral theme that composers use for a ton of films to evoke doom, used memorably in the opening theme of The Shining. Wounded by the explosion, Happy points to Taggart's dog tags, a clue that Tony channels his alternate universe Sherlock Holmes to decode. There's actually a fun callback with this point later when Happy points to the TV playing Downton Abbey. After threatening the Mandarin, Maya appears at Tony's home.
You're not the Mandarin. Are you? Are you?
Interesting how Maya never answers that question. A hint that she is still working for AIM and Killian, who are funding the Mandarin campaign. Tony summons the Mark 42 armor to protect Pepper, giving us our first hint of Pepper in the rescue armor in Avengers Endgame. And when Tony lands in Tennessee, he rubs snow on his left arm. Tony's left arm is kind of a recurring injury. He broke it in the past, and now his recent implants have ruptured. Tony breaks into the garage of Harley Keener, a whiz kid who actually returns for Tony's funeral in Avengers Endgame. Harley Keener has been brought up as a potential Iron Lad figure in future films. The newspaper uses a photo of Tony from his Senate hearing in Iron Man 2 and the leaked set photo of the suit repurposed for the newspaper photo in the first movie. Pepper finds Tony's recorded message for her inside one of his old helmets, setting up the way Tony will leave post-mortem messages for Pepper in Endgame. And even though the Mandarin in this movie ain't the real Mandarin, Slattery's costume does include the 10 rings. The one on his right pinky is the same one Raza wore in Iron Man. Shang-Chi will likely reveal the actual 10 rings and how they're McLuhan tech with mystic powers. Harley triggers Tony's panic attack by comparing the blast crater to the Hellmouth wormhole.
6 dead, only 5 shadows.
Yeah, well, people said these shadows are like the marked souls going to heaven. Except the bomb guy. He went to hell and he didn't get a shadow.
6 victims, only 5 going to heaven. This is the math of Tony's greatest fear, that his self-destruction will cause the deaths of the 6 Avengers, but he will be trapped in the hell of his own making. Yeah, Tony, that AC/DC ain't as fun when it's on Mephisto's awesome mix. You're already in hell! So, when Tony tells Chad Davis's mom that her son wasn't a murderer, he's as much reassuring the family of an innocent victim as he is himself. They're attacked by another extremist soldier, Ellen Brandt. In the comics, the ex-wife and villain to Man-Thing. Brandt's facial scarring here could be a reference to the acid scarring from Man-Thing in the comics. Savin takes Harley.
Mr. Stark, I am so sorry.
No, I think he was trying to say, I want my goddamn file.
It's not your fault, kid.
Assuming Tony's relationship with Harley is training wheels protocol for his mentorship of Peter Parker, these words are deeply ironic.
Stark? Sorry.
Slattery executes on live TV an accountant for the Roxxon Corporation, the recurring energy conglomerate of the Marvel world. Later, the oil tanker is a Roxxon one. Stan Lee judges a pageant, and Tony hacks a news truck with the help of comedian Adam Paley as Gary, another nerdy wannabe that Tony must learn how to mentor. Meanwhile, Maya brings up Werner von Braun.
Before he built rockets for the Nazis, the idealistic Werner von Braun dreamed of space travel. He stargazed.
Von Braun was one of the idealists who inspired Howard and Tony, who similarly built weapons and later aimed his tech at the stars. Fun fact, Von Braun was one of the German scientists recruited by the US after the war in Operation Paperclip, the same program that allowed Arnim Zola to corrupt S.H.I.E.L.D. After his third panic attack, Harley tells Tony to just build something, inspiring Tony to cure himself the same way he has in the past. Engineer a solution from box of crops. After learning the truth of Killian's compound, they reference Thor.
Ever since that big dude with a hammer fell out of the sky, subtlety's kind of had its day.
Tony references Thor too, with the Mark 42 pieces delayed, just like how Mjolnir was for Thor when he was fighting Hulk. This ponytail express guard is the same actor from Vanko's prison cell in Iron Man 2, and the other guard has the movie's best line.
Honestly, I hate working here. They are so weird.
This guy is Erik Orem, Robert Downey Jr.'s fight choreographer for the Marvel and Sherlock Holmes films. Fully suited up, Tony hilariously walks downstairs. Love that, always gotta show it. And he awesomely uses the Mark 42 to barrel a monkeys the people, and they blow off a fisherman's hat. One of my favorite tropes that we also saw in the first Iron Man. Now, this shipyard rescue is accompanied by the House Party Protocol. Dozens of Iron Man suits, and we gotta break down which of them we can see. Suit down, baby! All right, first up is a Mark 17 Heartbreaker, named for its enlarged chest repulsor. Tony uses it to break Rhodey's heart later.
Can I give you a lift?
Very funny.
Arriving at Heartbreaker's left looks like the Mark 39 Star Boost, a suborbital suit capable of spaceflight. The Star Boost definitely shows up later. And to the left of that one is the Mark 33 Silver Centurion, the first suit Tony suits up in this battle, known for its polygonal shape and its hidden blades that Tony uses to cut off Killian's arm. And to the left of Silver Centurion is a Mark 15 Sneaky suit, the last suit Tony wears in the battle, jumping in after blowing up Killian. At that point, it's missing a leg. What happened to it, we'll never know. Sliding over to the right of Heartbreaker is the Mark 13 armor. Ain't much to say about that one. And to the right of that one, the Mark 35 red snapper suit, which gets decapitated. It has these long pincer-like claws. And to the right of Red Snapper is the Mark 27 Disco. It's got a bold red on blue color scheme. Speaking of blue, the next shot shows three more fun ones, the Mark 30 Blue Steel, and two speed-based suits, the Mark 21 Midas and the Mark 19 Tiger. Ooh, I really like that one. A suit that got Carol fucking Baskin's husband on its breath. And then there's a sighting for the Mark 37 Hammerhead suit with its teal color pressurized bulk for use underwater. Then Tony orders the house party to take him to church. And the first to dive in is the Mark 31 Piston suit. Piston also gets torn apart later in battle. Now, one of the coolest suits is the Mark 41 Bones suit, black and gold design, and the 41 being the prototype of the Mark 42, it disassembles and reassembles its parts. Now, the big boy is the Mark 38 Igor suit, used for delivering heavy loads. Its design is believed to be a precursor of the Hulkbuster armor revealed in Age of Ultron. And then there's the Mark 25 Striker suit with yellow and black jackhammer arms. Then, after leaving the Silver Centurion, Tony tries to jump in the Mark 22 Hot Rod, named after those flame boots like Tony's Ford Roadster. It was designed to be a new War Machine prototype, but yeah, the hot rod is immediately destroyed. Then Tony suits up in the Mark 16 Nightclub, but then ejects right before Killian punches through it, and then jumps in the Mark 40 Shotgun. Powerful repulsors, backhanded Killian, but Killian slices off its leg, hits him with it, and then he slices it in half. Then the Mark 42 returns, and for the third time in the movie, it hilariously shatters. But like Tony, its brokenness ends up being its secret weapon, because Tony uses it to assemble around Killian and blow him up. Doing this, Tony gives the enemy what he always wanted and dooms him with the burden of that power, like Jafar in Aladdin. Anybody live in space? And the final suit is the Mark 8, which Pepper takes down. Now, this would have been the first new model of armor Tony built after the Mark 7 in Avengers, meaning that Pepper here uproots the beginning of Tony's obsessive tinkering phase. She's the corner of the triangle that wins. Now, I mentioned earlier how Tony sliced off Killian's arm. Feige actually worked an amputation into each Phase 2 film as a nod to the amputation trope in the Star Wars movies. And of course, Killian has these dragon tattoos, appropriating the Mandarin title for himself. Some have said that the dragon imagery is a nod to the Iron Man villain Fin Fang Foom, but you know, the dragon is also just a recurring Chinese symbol with multiple associations. Maybe do some homework. Dragons can mean multiple things. And with the clean slate protocol, Tony transforms his broken suit recurring nightmare into victorious fireworks. The cardiologist Dr. Wu, that he brushed off in the prologue, returns, surgically removing the shrapnel from Tony's chest, showing how Tony evolved from ignoring conference guests like Ensign and Killian to letting others help him. And Tony uses these shrapnel pieces to make a necklace for Pepper, reflecting the way Tony repurposes scraps, whether it's cave junk or scrap art or his heart paperweight. This was inside me. Santa Tony also hooks up Harley with a new workshop, including a potato gun Mark II, and a replacement limited edition Dora the Explorer watch for his sister. Our final image shows Tony littering his removed arc reactor, detaching himself from the armor, and choosing Pepper over Iron Man. Well, until he decides to be Iron Man again in a couple years. But let's take another look at that post-credit scene.
It's like a snake swallowing its own tail. Everything comes full circle. Where did I lose you?
Elevator in Switzerland.
So you heard none of it. You know what, now that I think about it, oh God, my original wound. 1983, all right? I'm 14 years old, I still have a nanny? That was weird.
Remember, in the beginning, Tony told Banner,
I'm gonna start again.
yeah, Tony's not the most reliable narrator, is he? He's questioning himself, revising his story. Yeah, there's enough grounds here to interpret the Iron Man 3 final scene as Tony's fantasy, his dream scenario for how he wishes he could walk away from all this. Because if he was truly at peace, why the need for endless therapy? Now, to be clear, Iron Man 3 happened in the MCU. Tony built dozens of suits, Tony fought Killian, all that happened. But this narrative's fictitious nature makes Tony's conclusion definitely up for interpretation. The lesson is not retirement, but mentorship. Tony ignored gifted fanboys until they grew into syndrome-style demons. But by sharing his wisdom with the nerds, Tony learns exactly what to do when he finds the MCU's biggest nerd. Give him Pepper's shirt. Do you believe the Iron Man 3 ending was real? Comment down below and join our watch-alongs on Discord by becoming a patron at patreon.com/newrockstars. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Erik Voss, follow New Rockstars, and subscribe to have all your nerdy questions answered. Questions like,
Can I have my shoe back?